is sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. We got Nick Wright. We got some Kevin Wilds. Greg Jennings is with us this morning. We're all in a great mood. I'm excited. We got a great show on a Thursday morning. The 49ers continue to slight Jimmy G. Jameis Winston can see. Good thing he's a quarterback. And Brett Favre with some very interesting insight into Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. That is where we start the show this morning. Who knew that trading up in the first round to draft a 21-year-old quarterback out of Utah State would cause so much drama? But that's what the Packers did. And as a result, this is what the Packers would have to deal with: the possibility of losing Aaron Rodgers. The latest critique comes from Brett Favre, who said, "I think they burned a bridge that's going to be hard to overcome. At some point, it will rear its ugly head. I think Aaron will finish somewhere else. That's my gut. I guarantee you it has the wheels turning in Aaron's mind. And if that's the case, there's a chip on his shoulder towards the organization that was otherwise not there." Greg, you played with both Favre and Rodgers during your 7 seasons in Green Bay. I'm curious, what did you make of Brett Favre's comments?
I thought they were very interesting and very telling. A player who's kind of gone through something similar. And so we look at and we listen to what Brett has said. He has a relationship with Aaron Rodgers, so he's conversed with Aaron. He has kind of an inside track on what's going on in his mind without speculating, but he can speak from experience. And when you can speak from experience, you kind of know what the signs are for when things start to unravel. And I believe that this is one of the signs that Brett had that he really didn't identify even when Aaron was drafted. Because every player believes that, okay, yeah, you drafted a guy, I'm going to do my part, I'm still going to be the guy, but you never know that timetable. And for me, I don't blame the Packers here. I simply don't blame the Packers, because for a position that we consider to be the most important position on the football field within every organization, why do every team just focus on one individual at that position? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Why not plan for the future? We see so many different teams that are stacking their quarterback rooms now. The New Orleans Saints, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles have done it. So this should be the norm, and for once, players need to understand that it's about the team. If it really is about the team, then I should have someone else that can step up. I don't think this is a big issue, because Aaron will again do what he needs to do, being in a position where he's experienced this, being that guy, being drafted. I think he ends his career in Green Bay, possibly somewhere else, as Brett said, but I don't think it's a big issue right now.
You just made Packers fans very happy. Look what happened in New England. It came down to Brady and Garoppolo. They ended up shipping Garoppolo out. Nick, I'm curious, do you agree with Favre that the Packers have burned a bridge that's now going to be hard to overcome?
Of course. And listen, you don't draft a first-round quarterback to be your backup. You draft a first-round quarterback to eventually be your starter. So, of course, this means Aaron Rodgers won't end his career in Green Bay. And if we want to make the argument that the organization has to be forward-thinking, the organization has to put team ahead of individual, that's fine. But then we have to say to the organization, can you have some consistency in your decision-making? Brian Gutekunst became the general manager in January of 2018. His first major decision was not drafting Derwin James, trading out of the pick. But his second major decision was giving Aaron Rodgers 2 years early a massive contract extension, which complicates this entire process. He didn't have to do that. If he didn't give Aaron that contract extension, his contract would have expired after this most recent season. You could franchise tag him and then trade him next year for a king's ransom with no cap ramifications. Instead, Gutekunst gave him that contract extension, which is what has put them in this trick bag to begin with. One, Rodgers is unmovable for at least 2 years. Two, one of the biggest benefits of drafting a first-round quarterback is what? The first-round quarterback salary. That you can get all these other great players like the Chiefs did, like the Seahawks did, like the Eagles did, like the Rams did, like the Texans should have but neglected to supplement your young quarterback. But you can't do that when you have the highest paid quarterback on your roster there already. And for every year of Jordan Love's rookie contract until year 4, Rodgers' cap hit or dead cap hit is massive. So there is no consistency in thought here, Wilds. So this idea that this is all part of their plan, when did you hatch the plan? 96 hours ago? Because it certainly wasn't part of your plan a year or two ago when you were extending Aaron Rodgers.
See, Nick, I think it comes down to more than dollars and cents in the contracts. I feel like there's a huge emotional factor of Aaron Rodgers leaving the Packers. And we looked up quarterbacks who have been with their team for 16 years, and it's filled with legends. It starts with Bart Starr, Dan Fouts, great Patriot, Steve Grogan, Elway, Marino, Roethlisberger, Eli, and Aaron's going into his 16th year. We looked it up. We said, you know what? This kind of plays out in two ways. We call it the tale of two E's. It can play out like John Elway's career played out, where you're selected to the Pro Bowl both seasons and you win back-to-back Super Bowls. Or your last few seasons and the loyalty that you've shown a team plays out like Eli. Lost 14 of his final 20 games and loses he loses his job to Daniel Jones. So, Jenna, to me, I wish Aaron Rodgers goes out the Eli route. I don't see him going out the Eli route. I hope he goes out the Elway route. Too many E's here. My gut, though, is he ends up following great Patriot Tom Brady, ends up leaving.
Wow. All right. Well, Greg, I do want to ask you this. One of the common themes with regards to the Packers is that the team never really surrounded Aaron Rodgers with another first-round talent, right? He always had to do everything by himself. But if you do look at the guys who Green Bay took in the second round, take a look at the list. You got Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, you got Davante Adams. That's an impressive list I'm looking at right here. Are we undervaluing how much talent the Packers have actually surrounded Aaron Rodgers with?
100%. We always will, because you're talking about a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're looking at these receivers, and you're getting them in the second and third later round. James Jones is a name that's not even on there. He was a third-round guy. But you can have this argument, and I've said it, but it's not been offensively that they haven't surrounded him. It's really been defensively that they hadn't supported him to where the defense can get the ball back into his hands. Offensively, he's always had at least one great receiver and then a very good supplement receiver, with the exception of last year. But for his career, he's always had somebody to throw the ball to, and it just hasn't resulted in winning consecutive Super Bowls or multiple Super Bowls, I should say. And so I think that's where we get into this back and forth of, well, they haven't surrounded him with talent. Yeah, they actually have. They've always replenished. When Ted Thompson was in charge, he made sure he had talent around him going into every season, and then it kind of phased out a little bit there, but he also was injured a couple of those seasons too. So to say that he hasn't had help, that's a stretch.
Well, here's what I'd say, Greg. I agree that the issue has been defense. The last decade, they haven't had a top 10 defense. I agree with you. However, when you look at that list, Greg Jennings, first name on that list, was a superstar for 3 seasons in Green Bay. You get hurt, and then they move on from you prematurely, which is something I would imagine that Aaron Rodgers did not want. Jordy Nelson, we know they moved on from him before Aaron wanted them to. Randall Cobb, they moved on from him. And then there's Davante Adams. And while Davante Adams is an excellent player, he has had one 1,000-yard season in his career, and he's not a top 5 receiver in football. And you look at the other great quarterbacks. He's never had a Moss Gronk. He's never had a Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne. How about Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jimmy Graham earlier for Breeze? What about what Patrick Mahomes has now in Hill and Kelsey? What Deshaun Watson had and DeAndre Hopkins? Like, he has had a lot of good to very good receivers. He's yet to have a Hall of Famer with him like the other great quarterbacks have. But either way, whether they want to focus on offense, defense, or the damn kicker, don't focus on his replacement when you're coming off a 13-3 year when you made the NFC Championship game.